Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Thursday, January 8th, and yes, you see the headline of today's show. We have the Catherine Austin Fitts with us live here in the SJ studio for the entire show, and we are going to hit a lot of topics. Of course, the shooting in Minnesota, ICE agents gunning down a protester, a citizen, a resident of Minnesota yesterday. It has everyone talking, especially on the twit. And I woke up this morning and apparently I am now an angry white female libtard. See you next Tuesday, because I happen to have a different opinion about what I saw with my own eyes, which every other American saw in the country, but it went against the narrative of the MAGA Republicans. It is clear to me that early yesterday, some type of messaging or communication went out. They got the talking points, the cat turds, and the Tim Pools and the sycophants that run propaganda for Donald Trump and the Republican administration. This is the storyline. These are the talking points. This was a justified killing, right? That was the narrative. I looked at one video, one of the best out there. It was 4 minutes long. It was very easy for me to see immediately that this was clearly not a justified killing, that the ICE agent was never in any imminent danger, clearly. And that is visible to, I think, the majority of citizens in the United States of America. But there clearly are bots and trolls and algorithms and messaging, a propaganda effort that was deployed. And so I pushed out a tweet yesterday, right after the show, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it now has about 1 million views. I'm public enemy number one because I told the truth about what I believe in this situation. So we are going to talk about that with Catherine Austin Fitts from the start on the show. We're going to bring her in just about 5 minutes. She is the publisher of Solari, one of the best resources in the world to help normal human beings who are outside of the two-party political paradigm prepare for what is coming. And many people are very aware that what is coming in the next few years is instability and chaos and an acceleration of the plan to basically take over everything by, the oligarchs and the billionaires and the trillionaires and those who seek to put us all in the digital control grid. And, Catherine Austin Fitts has a really good understanding of all aspects of that: financial, geopolitical, social, cultural. And we're going to be talking to her in just a moment. We're going to be talking about Venezuela, of course, because that is now setting up the new paradigm, the new global paradigm, and setting us up for some type of World War III, which many people are talking about. We're going to ask her about that. Also, we're going to talk about her recent interview with Tiffany Cianci, who has been on the SJ show, talking about the plunder. So one of the aspects of the war they're going to wage against us is going to be financial and economic, and they're doing it right in front of our faces. It is highly illegal. They liken it to the mafia. The massive global corporations working alongside a massive government apparatus and essentially defrauding the people in a million different ways. We're going to understand that so that you can protect your family and your finances, your small business. They have a lot of dirty tricks that they use, and Catherine is one of the best at explaining those type of tricks. The ultimate goal today in the show is to analyze what is happening in the world today from outside of the two-party political paradigm. Not left, not right, just the truth, straight up every day here in the SJ show. And those are the guests that we bring every week. These are brilliant analysts who who are outside of the political paradigm. They're not carrying baggage for Donald Trump or the left. They're just trying to navigate this using common sense and their brains. And that is so rare in the world today. So we have a big show for you today. But first, I want to say hello to all of you on the live chat. I love seeing new faces, new voices. Fearless Rose in USA. Great to see you on the live chat. Sea Wave 7 is with us today. Catherine the Great Austin Fitz. I'm very proud. I think I coined that name for Catherine, and she is absolutely great. So we can't wait to bring her in. Julie November, love to see you on the live chat. A lot of new faces here. It's great. Zen Woman is with us. CJP Rumble. Edgar 615 is with us as well on the live chat. We are live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV. We are live on Substack, major Substack efforts by the Shannon Joy Show this year as we move a lot of the content and a lot of my engagement from Twitter, which is a nightmare, chaotic show, to Substack, which I think is a little bit more, the algorithm is a little bit friendlier. And I just think it's going to work better. So for those of you who are watching live right now on Substack, welcome. Great to see you. We're also live on Facebook and a bunch of other platforms as well. If you guys want to comment, Annie, our producer, will be checking the comment sections on our other platforms other than Rumble, and pop those comments up, and she can put them in my notes, and we can address some of your questions and comments today. In the second half of the show, Guitar Lily is with us as well. And yes, we have a great show today. We're going to go to break in just a moment. And Zen Woman, thank you. Yes, smash that thumbs button. It helps the algorithm. We're going to go to break in a minute. When we come back, we're going to start right in with Catherine. But I do want to thank our sponsors over at Schiff Gold. We could not bring you the Shannon Joy Show without our sponsors, and Peter Schiff over at Schiff Gold. I could not have chosen a better gold and silver partner than Peter Schiff. I've been using his analysis for over 10 years. He has been a truth teller about the Bitcoin scam. He's been a truth teller about preparing with physical gold and silver. And he has gone up against the government and the narratives, a lot of the economic and financial fads out there. And he has protected his clients for so many years. So when I had the opportunity to bring in a new gold sponsor, the first person I called was Peter. And I'm so thrilled to welcome them into the SJ sponsor family. If you are looking at physical gold and silver, gold or silver in your IRA, or even gold and silver stocks, Schiff Investments, he also works on people with their portfolios, takes very good care of them. Please go to schiffgold.com/joy. That is schiffgold.com/joy. There you will find a clearinghouse of market research reports, his weekly radio address that he gives, which is chock full of really great information. And you can sign up for his newsletter and also get plugged in with his team. They can help you in any aspect of preparation for what is coming in 2026. And we know that the financial scene is going to be bumpy. So please go to schiffgold.com/joy. That is schiffgold.com/joy, and help support the sponsors that support the Shannon Joy Show. We are going to go on a quick break, one commercial. When we come back, without further ado, we're going to bring in the great Catherine Austin Fitz to talk about what went down in Minnesota, what went down in Venezuela, what's going on with the economy and the financials, and how all of this is tied together, and it is going to impact your life, so that, and understanding that is going to help you to be prepared. So we're going to hit all of that when we come back in a moment, right here on the Shannon Joy Show. I can't tell you how many Americans are now not trusting their food supply and our United States healthcare food system, because, as you know, there are so many toxins that are being deployed through our food supply. And this is why so many Americans are now eating like their health depends on it. And That's because most disease does not start in your genes. It actually starts in your kitchen and in your gut. Our food supply has been hijacked. That's just the truth. From Roundup poison to mRNA animal injections, Big Ag and Big Pharma have strategically synced up to get people stuck on a subliminal medical loop. And the wellness company, they're no longer accepting a system where the health industry ignores food and the food industry ignores health. They have to work together. Meet Wellness Farms, a new way to fuel your body from a trusted brand who puts people before profits. So here we go. Hand selected USA small farmed beef boxes, where the beef goes from a pasture to a butcher, flash frozen, and then right to your door. Think old school meets modernized convenience from the wellness company. It is the purest. So, mRNA and vaccine free, grass fed, grass finished cattle raised on regenerative American farms, which is amazing. And these are family farms. And the animals are cared for in a way that restores the soil, protects ecosystems, and produces nutrient dense meat how nature intended. Each box is unique and it has unique cuts broken down by mineral and gut health focuses. No antibiotics, no hormones, just clean, honest, regeneratively raised food. We are thankful for, yeah, we do got the meats. We're so thankful for the wellness company and their support. Make sure that you always use the promo code MARY for any of your other purchases. But for today, make sure that you use Mary Farms to get $85 off your first beef box. I can't wait to try mine. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Without further ado, she is Catherine the Great. Catherine Austin Fitz joins us today in the Joy Virtual Studio, one of the most important voices, I think, in the world on all of the things that are coming our way, helping us understand where we are geopolitically, economically, culturally, and politically. Catherine, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. She is the publisher of Solari. I want to highly recommend that you guys become members of Solari, some of the best, most pristine, gold standard information on everything at Solari. Catherine, welcome to the program. I'm so glad to have you here in the new year. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Shannon. It's great to see you. It's great
It's
to see you. I just finished doing my annual wrap up, so I feel like I'm prepared.
I cannot wait to hear about
Yeah.
your annual wrap up. I'm sure it will terrify me, but that's okay. That's okay.
No,
You and I
I'm a huge optimist about this year. I
okay.
I am looking forward to this year, and I'm a huge optimist.
All right. Well, maybe we should start there and then get into other things. You and I have been hanging out with all of the same people, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Michael Jan yesterday was my guest. Didn't realize that he was staying with you in Netherlands with his
Uh-huh.
beautiful, amazing wife. Tiffany Cianci, you just did a 3 hour blockbuster interview with Tiffany
Right.
Cianci, who is going to be a superstar. Her ability
Oh
to
no, I think
explain.
she's a superstar now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. 3 hour interview for Solari subscribers. I'm halfway through it, Catherine, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I just saw you popped up in the in our private chat here in the studio that you've hung out with Peter Schiff as well, and I'm not surprised.
So Peter and I were invited to a Bitcoin conference, a crypto conference in 2017 at the Aspen Institute.
Hmm.
And we were both in a panel together, and we were basically trying to explain to all these young, enthusiastic cultists why Bitcoin was a Ponzi scheme. And it was the funniest conversation you have ever seen. It was just, and you know how clear and direct Peter is. He's always clear, he's always direct.
Yeah.
And we did, and they were not happy.
He gets beat up on social media, especially on Twitter, by the Bitcoiners. And that
Uh-huh.
is why I've been using his analysis. I read his book, Why Economies Grow, How Economies Grow, and Why They Crash years ago. It's such a great primer to understand economics
Well,
in a
here's
sane
what's so
way.
funny. So we've been through a period for decades where the leadership in the West has financialized everything. and you can print paper and print paper and print paper, but at some time, the real assets in the real world are going to come knocking, right?
Right.
And what we've seen, for example, in the silver market is silver price exploding because if you look at the ratio of paper to silver, at some point it has to get closed because you have silver demand skyrocketing. Silver is one of the best conductors of electricity, and if you're moving to an electrical economy, and,
Right.
and you need silvers for data centers, and you need silvers for solar energy, and you need silver for electric cars, what's going to happen?
That's right.
So sure enough, the real world is knocking. That's the message that you see in all the different stories. We're going to talk about Venezuela. That's the story of the real world knocking. And with deglobalization, with the markets between East and West bifurcating, you can't solve the problem by printing more paper.
That's right.
If China says we're not exporting silver or we're not exporting refined rare metals, then raising the price won't help. We're in a whole different world now, and the real assets in the real world are asserting themselves as we knew they would. There
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Well, well, and of course, the people right now who are telling the truth about these things, people like yourself and Peter Schiff. I mean, we get, I mean, absolutely eviscerated. But but he's got really thick skin, and it's great to watch. And so that's why, I brought him in. As I mentioned, I've been using him as a resource for years. I was a huge fan, and then about 2 years ago, I just got such a kick out of how funny he was with the people who were just bashing him on Twitter. I'm like, you've got to come on my show. And so he's been a regular guest for 2 years. And so it was a real blessing. And he's a straight shooter, as are you.
Right.
Uh, and he doesn't sugarcoat things. I think a lot of things are much more simple than they would like us to think they are. He's great at simplification. And even our contracts, we have a one-page contract. You can shoot a million holes through it. It's just he's
Well, but
great to work with.
here's the thing. We're in a world where many things are marketed with a combination of what I call magical thinking plus neurowarfare.
Okay.
And you end up with wonderful people who've been sold a bill of goods. So
Yeah.
I was an investment advisor for 10 years, and one of the things I did was I constantly had to detox people out of all sorts of frauds and scams, like the dinar scam.
Mm,
The crypto things are endless. It went on and on and on. I had to clean a couple people up from Madoff. So we just are about to publish our wrap up on financial fraud and protecting people against
mm,
financial fraud. And in fact, for our movie of the year, we used a movie from 2024, The Beekeeper, which is sort of a B grade action movie, but it really helps you understand the kind of fraud we're up against and
interesting.
how powerful and sophisticated it is. So, if there's anything I know a lot about, it's financial fraud. And
Mm,
but financial fraud always comes with this magic thinking, and the magic thinking around crypto, I'll never forget. I did a 3 hour interview with Mercola with a Bitcoin cultist,
hmm.
and I kept saying to him, look, it's in a pump, but they're going to dump it. Please promise me. I do this every time. I did it at the Aspen Institute with Peter. I said, promise me that as you're swapping, you're creating real, you're creating trades, you're locking in tax liability. Please, please escrow your taxes in dollars and not
Mm,
Bitcoin, because when they dump it, your tax liability is going to be greater than the value of your entire position.
wow.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
Right. Well, I've seen them do this so many times in so many markets. And sure enough, after the Aspen, we were in a pump when we were at the Aspen Institute. Sure enough, they dumped it. And the next thing you know, I read in the Wall Street Journal that the IRS is sending in 10,000 auditors to audit people's Bitcoin gains, right? Oh yeah. That's how you get, these guys in a trap, right? So
Wow.
when I did it with with the cultist, we were in a pump, and it's during the pandemic, and they kept a lot of people busy. Instead of defending their families from the great poisoning, they were making money on their Bitcoin and thinking they're masters of the universe. And sure enough, some of them were swapping, so creating taxable gains. but they were also living off of debt. They were leveraging their position with debt
Oh my
and
gosh.
paying for their daily, yeah, they were living off their gains. And then of course you get the dump,
Yeah.
and guess what happens? Your position can't cover your debt, it can't cover your taxes, and you're deeply in the hole. And that's why you've got to be, whenever you play in any speculative market, whether it's, with with the Bitcoin or anything, you have to just understand that the people who are managing these games, have been at it for a long time. They have a very sophisticated manual.
The thing that always got me with Bitcoin, this super magical, secret, godlike character, Satoshi or Sagamoti or whoever this guy was, I don't know. The creator Bitcoin holds like this inordinate amount of Bitcoins that he could literally pull out at any moment. Any moment.
Right.
I'm like, how
So
do you feel how on earth do you feel safe with that?
so here's the thing. We published a piece. A lot of the state legislators were getting lobbied to buy Bitcoin at the
Mhm.
states.
Yep.
And one of my speeches to them is, if you can afford to buy Bitcoin, then you can afford to cut taxes and let your citizens decide what they want to buy. If they want to buy Bitcoin, great. It's their
Right.
business if they want to speculate. But that's what governments are not hedge funds.
Hmm.
You're here to make sure the roads work. So we created this thing called Bitcoin Bailout, and you can get it up on Solari. We have a web presentation with some great videos. And one of the things it shows is, when BlackRock came out with their ETF, they are subject to uh, SEC standards of disclosure. And they put out a video, and it's very funny to read their prospectus, because they don't even pretend in their prospectus that they're fully collateralized. They say this
Hmm.
is an investment that tracks the performance of Bitcoin. It doesn't even say that it's Bitcoin. But my favorite one, they put out this little video, and at the bottom of one of the shots of the video, and we have it up at Bitcoin Bailout, is there is no guarantee that the 21 million limit is firm.
So the whole thing about Bitcoin is that you can never, there's a limit. We're never going to print more. We're never
So
going to print
we
more.
also have a video of Charlie Munger saying, when they want to change the limit, they can and they will. So, and it's really funny. So we have a couple of great videos, but it's
Yeah.
a very concise thing. And then I did an interview, and if you haven't interviewed him, you should. I did an interview with Steve Patterson, who wrote the book Hijacking Bitcoin with Roger Ver.
It was so good. It was
It
so good.
it was that is a fabulous book. Those guys have really blown the whistle on what's going on. And you see, by looking at this, you see all the magic thinking around Bitcoin. Now, one of the things I will say is, if you can, they are planning between stable coins and asset tokenization to create trillions out of thin air.
Hmm.
And if you can print money infinitely, you can keep a Ponzi scheme going forever. The
Right.
reason they want government to buy it or seize it is because, with so many whales, the only way the whales can get out is if you have a new guy coming in, and of course that's government. Government's the only
Mm.
big enough guy to take out the whales. And I believe once they're finished, sort of doing what they would like to do, they're going to let Bitcoin, back down to zero. Mark Goodwin, who's doing a great series on the Solari Report, thinks they're going to hold it, keep it up. And either is possible. And I have to tell you, Shannon, I don't even think they know which one it's going to be. You know, they're
Wow.
they're just they're trying to get someplace, and that someplace is converting from currency into a digital control grid. And
Yes.
Bitcoin is part of the prototyping they're doing to get everybody suckered into the digital control grid. And it's too bad, because Bitcoin, if you look at the design, it could have been, a great decentralized payment mechanism. And it's too
Mm.
bad. It got Steve and Roger are exactly right. It got hijacked, and it is what it is.
Well, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing. We are not privy to their plans, right? And how they are going to get out of this pickle, which is $21 trillion dollars or $31 trillion dollars in debt. And as you've pointed out at Solari, about 20 some trillion that is just off the books. It was stolen. We don't even know
So
where that is.
so here's the number. From 1998 to 2015, it was 21 trillion undocumentable adjustments at DOD and HUD. Okay. But wait, The bailouts between 2008 and 2012 plus were 29 trillion. Okay,
My
so now
word.
21 plus 29 is 50 trillion. And then the going direct injections after the going direct reset started in 2019 during the pandemic were another 5 trillion. So that's 55 trillion without even counting the quantitative easing. So, I always tell people we don't have a financial problem, we have a bank robbery,
Yeah.
right? And so we have a new, in the annual wrap up, we did a whole new chart and we put it out on social media that shows the combination of the 21 trillion and the 29 trillion and the 5 trillion.
Mm,
So, and it's called the financial coup d'etat because I like to, and I show you the start and stop dates on Epstein, on the Epstein operation. And one of our big stories is on the Epstein op because I think Epstein was running a lot of the control files and a lot of I would say he's the SWIFT system for the missing
wow.
$21 trillion. And I think that's one of the reasons they don't want the true story to come out because this is not just about sex and the control files.
Right.
It's about the biggest bank robbery in Western history.
And you think that Jeffrey Epstein was tied up in all of that? He was a brilliant
Absolutely.
financier, right?
No, he
Not,
was a
not really.
good fixer.
Okay.
I don't think he was a brilliant financier. I think he was a good fixer. And essentially I think he and the Clintons initially ran a lot of the process of moving that money around. So he
My
was
word.
Bob Rubin introduced him to the White House in 1993. You can see that on that financial coup chart. And he went to the White House, I think, 17 times, you know, at least, 2 dozen, almost 2 dozen times, according to Whitney Webb,
Yeah.
uh, before Clinton left. And then he and Clinton went on a plane, and suddenly countries around the world were donating money in huge amounts back. Where was that money coming from? I think it was
Mm,
coming out of DOD, and how does my guess? But what's interesting is, Dr. Mark Skidmore and I published that huge study in 2017 saying there's 21 trillion missing from the US government. And there was a big brouhaha in Washington about whether DOD was going to publish an audit, which of course it never did, and it's being rewarded now by military expenses being proposed to go up to 1.5 trillion, which just goes to show you are incentivized well to steal. Anyway,
yeah.
so we
Well,
came out with a study, and what was the resolution? The resolution was not the DOD publish an audit, but the federal government, the Congress, and the executive branch, the Trump White House, the Senate, the House, Republican and Democrat, all agreed to FASB 56, which is a policy that says the US government can keep secret books,
mm-hmm.
and not just in the 24 agencies, but another 150 entities. And when you throw in the national security and classification laws, it includes the big banks and contractors and IT firms that work for the government, which means when you look at the US large cap stock market and the bond market, there's no disclosure. Everything's secret.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's frightening.
Well, and the tactics and the techniques that you and Tiffany Cianci discussed in your interview with her at Solari, what was pretty fascinating about all of the ways that they cheat, all of the ways that they hide their illegal dealings, how they use the legal system and arbitration and private equity and judgments. I mean, it's all kind of tangled together. And what you're pointing out here and what I appreciate about you, Catherine, is that you are in that independent space. And I think one of the difficulties of getting Americans to understand what is really happening is it's multifold, right? You have the basic division of Americans with between left and right, Democrat and Republican. And we've been conditioned for 20 years to absolutely despise each other and fear each other. What you point out here is that this was a Clinton problem, then a Trump problem, clearly a Biden problem, and now again a Trump problem.
So,
These
so
financial
the
crimes span well not just the two political parties, but within those two political parties, we've been conditioned. Like as a Republican, I was conditioned to hate government and see government as the villain, and Democrats are conditioned to hate corporations and see corporations as the villain, right? But I think what people don't understand is that the Dems and the Republicans and the corporation and the government are all working together in this cartel scenario, right? While constantly injecting chaos and tumult and discord, what we're seeing in Minnesota, what we're seeing in Venezuela, which we're going to get to in a minute, how that plays into this. But all of that, the razzle dazzle and the big show and all of that division is keeping us so divided that we can't think straight
Right.
and see this. And do you see it in that perspective?
Yeah, so if I put a turd in a Tiffany's package and I put a turd in a Macy's package, it's the same turd. But
Right.
the packaging, I would prefer the Tiffany packaging.
Of
So,
myself included.
right. So there are preferences, and you do have real factions that fight.
Yeah.
So within the Uniparty, they're fighting over who gets the pork, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. But what's interesting is we now have broken down to serious factions in the United States who are seriously fighting, but none of them believe in the rule of law. They are
Mm.
all operating way outside the law.
Yes.
And to be blunt, most Americans, as long as they got their money in their check, were perfectly happy to go along with that because it was working for them. Now it's working against them, and now we're facing the fact that you've let crime go on too long. So for example, I think people were very, very offended by the grifting of the Biden family. Now, what I have to say is the Biden family can't hold a candle to the grifting of the Trump family.
It's true.
It's
It's true.
amazing. It's amazing. They've taken grift to a whole new. I said to somebody, because tariffs have always been associated with huge grift. And Dr. Joseph Farrell has written two excellent books about grifting, or sort of what happened during the Civil War. And he goes into Ulysses S. Grant and the grifting with me in the last annual wrap up. And we got on this annual wrap up, and I said, you have to admit it that the Trump guys have totally outdone Ulysses S. Grant. And he said, 100%.
At least the Bidens had the decency to do it on the DL, right? Like they hid it because there is a general acknowledgement that this is wrong and
Well,
immoral and illegal.
they
They
tried to
tried to
hide it.
hide it.
They didn't do a very good job, but they
Tr-
tried.
Trump is just brazen. And that's what we saw. Let's pivot this to what we're seeing in in Minnesota, the actions that we saw in Venezuela, breathtaking. The first
Right.
week of 2026, and I've told the audience I think 2026 is going to be about tumult, acceleration, and chaos. And it's one after another. I'm just getting my head around the fact that the president went to a sovereign nation, kidnapped a sitting president, hustled him back to the US, and then went in and took everything. We just absorbed Venezuela. It's just ours
So,
now.
so what about that is worse than what we did in Dallas in 1963?
I guess you're right. You're right. You're
So,
right.
we've how many regime changes have we done since World War II? I don't think it's at 100 yet, but it's high.
Yes,
Okay. So this is an old model, and Trump was very aggressive about criticizing this model, but now he's doing it. So,
clearly.
yeah,
Clearly.
but let me back up because so this is what I said it last year during the annual wrap up, and I know you and I talked about it. America at the end of when the wall came down and the Soviet Union collapsed, we had a plan, and the plan was we're going to be a unipolar model. And when I saw the plan, that's why I left Washington. I said, this plan is going to fail. I'm out.
When you
Uh,
say unipolar, I just want the audience to understand. When you say that, use the term unipolar, you
the U.S.
mean,
is going to run a global empire and be the hegemon globally everywhere.
and
Okay.
that's through the petrodollar. It's through controlling the currency.
Part of it was the petrodollar. There were and the currency control comes in many different ways, but one was control of the sea lanes, one was control of the petrodollar, but the other was control of having everybody in a dollar debt trap. So every
Hmm.
country's in debt. That's the beauty of war and regime change because then they have to borrow money to buy lots of weapons and you get them in the debt trap.
Got it.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Okay. But so we wanted to run a unipolar model, and we were, I would say that plan failed.
Yeah.
And the last part of the failure was the neocon strategy. We had floated Russia in the early 90s, and the plan was they had come back faster than we thought. We lost control of the resources. They wanted to implode Russia with hybrid warfare again in the Ukraine. It failed. So the neocon strategy of using Russian resources to assert hegemony against China failed. And China's coming up much faster than we anticipated. Because
Okay.
remember, it was the West that financed China, and financed its rise. So,
Yes, it did.
so, so now the new administration comes in, it's got to recoup. And how is it going to recoup? Well, instead of going east-west, you're going to go north-south. So
Mm,
suddenly you're going to get back in the game in the Arctic Circle.
got it.
You need Greenland and you need part of Canada, and then you need more control in the United States, but you need to make sure you control the Panama Canal. And ultimately, what that means is you got to control Venezuela. And we're probably, and part of that relates to the oil offshore to the east of Venezuela. And, but I'm sure that Cuba and Colombia are also on the map, so to speak, or on the
And
menu.
yeah, Annie, if you want to pull up the clip from JD Vance on Venezuela, I'd like you to look at it, Catherine, because he pulled the mask off yesterday in an interview on Fox News. They pitched to the United States of America, our citizens, the action in Venezuela as a police action. This was to arrest a criminal who had violated laws in the United States of America. It's about narco terrorism. It's about, protecting American citizens and going after the drugs. It was about fentanyl and cocaine and Venezuela's role in importing these substances into the US. And that really fell flat. I mean, got to hand it to the American people. We're calling them out pretty quickly. Like they tried to push that narrative, but no one believed it from the start. And now they're just blatantly acknowledging what you just explained there. Can we roll that tape of JD Vance? And I'd love to get your response to it, Catherine, as we pivot now to Venezuela.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Taking out a dictator in Venezuela. How does that help the average American?
Well, a few things, Jesse. First of all, what it means is we're going to be able to control the incredible natural resources of Venezuela, which is good for America in a few ways. Number one, it allows us to put leverage on our enemies. Number two, it makes sure that if Americans need high quality, low cost power, we're always going to have access to it. And then the third thing is it does demonstrate American military excellence, which makes people afraid to cross us in the future. Some of the best ways that you maintain the peace is to make it clear that you carry a very strong sword if you ever need to use it. So I think it's good for us in a lot of different ways. We also have to remember, Jesse, this is in our neighborhood. This is not Iraq. This is not 7,000 miles away. This is in our neighborhood. If we cannot follow the basic principle, which has been a cornerstone of American foreign policy for 200 years, that we control our neighborhood, a lot of bad people are going to take advantage of it. What the President of the United States said is, in our neighborhood, the United States calls the shots. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it is again under the President's leadership.
Vice President JD Vance, again, our neighborhood. This is being cheered by MAGA Republicans. They're egging them on to take Cuba, take Greenland, take Canada. And, I haven't heard, Catherine, we get it. They go into these places under the guise of fighting terror or fighting the narco terrorists. But people understand that it's for resources, routes and resources is what Michael Yon would say.
Right.
But this is the first time that I mean, this is just blatant to your point. This is brazen. They're just saying it. We're going in, we're taking the resources. This gives us control of these resources. And they're
So,
making their cronies filthy rich. What are your
okay.
thoughts on it?
Well, but you know the red button story. I'm going to go back.
Yep.
Because the important thing to understand is when you look at a situation like this, if you had been in the president's chair, what would you have done?
Hmm.
Right? Okay. So at the end of World War II, George Kennan of the State Department said, we have 6% of the people and 50% of the resources. And to keep that going, we're going to have to drop a lot of bombs. And so Goldwater ran for president and said, we're going to drop a lot of bombs. And the American people said, oh, no, we're good Christians. We don't want to do that. So Jimmy Carter sat in front of the fireplace and shivered and said, we're going to have to cut back. And the American people said, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. And so the Bushes came along and said, you know something? Y'all are good Christians. Here's your check. Don't ask questions. And everybody said, okie dokie. Okay. So what you need to know, I call it the red button problem, and I've told you the red button story. And for your audience, if you go do a search on Solari or on YouTube for Fitz and the Red Button story. You'll get the whole thing. But Americans want the checks to keep coming. And as the dollar loses market share, it's harder and harder to keep those checks coming. And so, the strategy on how you were going to keep those checks coming has stalled in the Ukraine. And now there's a new strategy, which is going, instead of going east west, we're going to go north south. And you cannot like that strategy, but at least Vance had the courtesy of telling us the truth.
Right.
The narco terrorist thing stopped. In reality, he came back with a real asset argument. Now, I think it's much more complicated than that, but if you're going to describe it in 2 minutes, there is an argument that they don't want the Chinese and Russians in our neighborhood to the extent that they were in Venezuela. Now, Venezuela's been a fractious situation for quite a while now, but the reality is, if Americans want the subsidy to continue, then the question is, where are they going to assert control of the resources? Now, let me argue against that for a second because it's more complicated. We have allowed the American economy to become so financialized and so unproductive,
right,
that we don't deserve subsidy. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you want to attract capital, you should have such a great performance on the capital that you have that you attract more.
Right.
We've become a sucking sound of a highly unproductive economy, through over financialization and building a plunder society. I mean,
Right.
this is what Tiffany and I covered on the private equity. Most private equity, not all private equity, but most private equity operates on an extraction model that destroys businesses and primarily destroys the businesses of the people who are being poisoned. It's how you make money on depopulation. One of the videos you'll find on our wrap up is Larry Fink saying, we've created a new economic model where we can grow financially through a shrinking population.
That's terrifying.
It's reality. It's very funny. I keep telling the story. When Dr. Skidmore helped me do the report on the 21 trillion, he was astonished at the amount of lies and pushback that he got, because we're using all government documents. If you go to missingmoney.solera.com, we have, it's all documented by the government. We're using their financial statements. So when he published the report, remember 21 trillion missing, and the debt at that time outstanding was 21 trillion.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And we got to talk about taxes. But anyway, so he was astonished by the pushback. And after all our efforts, they adopt FASB 56. So I'm still doing radio shows about the missing money, and I'm running an errand in the county seat where I live, Bolivar, Tennessee.
Okay.
I'm sitting in the parking lot talking to him by cell phone. He calls, so I'm sitting in the parking lot, and he says, "Why do you keep doing this? You've been doing this since 1998."
Yeah.
And you won't quit. And they've completely rolled us over with FASB 56, but you keep doing it. Why do you keep doing it? I said, don't you understand, Mark? If we don't solve the problem financially, they have only one choice, and that's to lower life expectancy.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. That's what all this poisoning is about. They're lowering life expectancy. But if you look at the numbers, as the boomers start to accelerate their retirements, they have to accelerate the lowering of life expectancy. And so we have to deal with this, because better to face the financial problem than to allow a process that ultimately is going to, do. And so Mark was struggling because he couldn't fathom what I was talking about.
Right.
And so when the pandemic came, of course, the first thing I said to all my subscribers is, don't take the vaccine.
Yeah.
And it's an op. This is an op, and don't take the vaccine. And if you look at the numbers of lowered life expectancy, higher all-cause mortality, higher disability, follow Ed Dowd. He tracks it, perfectly. And they're just balancing the books, because if you can't balance the books with money, you balance it by changing the real assets in the real world, and that's lowering life expectancy. That's exactly what happened. The month after the budget deal in 1995 busted, two things happened the next month. You know what they were?
What?
The OxyContin was approved by the FDA, number one, and the HUD predatory lending and the predatory lending rules suddenly skyrocketed. And the predatory lending and the pill mills targeted all those, all those neighborhoods together. It was a pincer movement, and it was part of lowering life expectancy in the lower income groups. And then private equity goes in, because if you're going to kill off these people, you don't need all these businesses. Private equity roars in and starts buying up the businesses that serve that audience.
Mm.
And what are they doing? They're extracting the capital and bankrupting the companies and making money doing it.
And this is explained brilliantly. I want to encourage all of you guys to go to Solari, become subscribers, members, and pull up the interview between Catherine Austin Fitz and Tiffany Cianci, where they in a very detailed way with great examples and anecdotes and stories explain exactly how this happens.
Right.
If you're wondering why Joanne Fabrics went away, if you're wondering why so many businesses in America, your pediatrician, the nursing home that your mother was staying in, why they're all falling apart, customer service is going to hell, they're going bankrupt. All of it is because in the background, private equity is coming in and just degrading everything.
Well,
And
they're
yeah,
extracting capital, and so
yeah.
to shift it elsewhere.
Mhm.
It's an extraction model. It's extracting capital, and here's the thing: it's our state pension funds and our universities that have been critical players in financing it.
Mm,
Yeah. So what I wanted to do with this interview, because this is the longest interview we've ever published,
3 hours.
three
It's good.
hours, but we did massive amounts of charts and graphs and
Yeah.
videos and whatever, because this is important. What I wanted to do is help the healthcare people dealing with, with trying to preserve health freedom, and the food people who are trying to preserve food freedom, and the financial freedom people who are trying to preserve cash and stop, you know, programmable money, see the whole game whole, and
Mhm.
see that all the different pieces they're fighting with are part of something that includes the investment in financial markets. And if you look at their 401ks and IRAs, they're financing it, and they have
Mm.
the ability to stop financing it.
That's where the good news comes in. I
Right.
want to ask you about that. We're gonna hit Minnesota after the break. We kind of went backwards. I was gonna do Minnesota, and then I was going to do Venezuela, and then I was gonna do financial freedom, but we did financial, Venezuela, back to financial, and then we're gonna do Minnesota. But we're just learning so much. Catherine, I mean, you said you were optimistic about
Yeah, I'm
2026,
optimistic.
right?
So
So this is a dire picture that you present.
so so
Go
I'll,
ahead.
I'll give you a perfect example of why I'm optimistic.
Okay.
Fox News had somebody, I forget who it was, who was pitching this narco terrorist thing in Venezuela.
Okay.
And a guy is, they got three guys on. It was Laura Ingraham, I guess.
Okay.
And he says, well, are we going to send the military in to arrest the Sackler family? Because I'm from Appalachia, and we're, it wasn't Venezuela, it wasn't our problem. It was the Sackler family.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
And then somebody put out on Twitter, he said, okay, now get this. The U.S. military can drop into a sovereign nation, kidnap the president and bring him back, but not one arrest on the financial crisis, not one arrest on the COVID, atrocity, not one arrest on Epstein, not one arrest, and he goes down the line of where miraculously this administration can't make one arrest. And that's why I'm an optimist, because we are now seeing people figure it out and push back on corporate news, push back in the, what are supposed to be the disinformation and propaganda orients. And that's what I'm seeing all around the world. I'm seeing people connecting the dots and pushing back. If you look, the control grid coming in as a digital ID, it's
Yep.
coming in as programmable money,
Right.
and it's coming in as the local hardware infrastructure, which is the data centers,
Yeah.
flock, and these local surveillance contracts, and the effort to streamline, to jump over local control and put literally cell towers every 400 to 700 feet.
Yep.
But what's happening is, if you look at the pushback, we have a collection up at Solari on local pushback. If you just do a search for local pushback, you'll find it. people are going into their county commissioners and screaming and yelling and fighting, and they're stopping AI data centers. They are getting flock contracts undone and unwound. And
Flock. Can you
yeah,
explain
flock.
flock real quick? Just real quick so
Yeah,
people know what
they
flock is.
bring in and put up cameras that track and collect data on all the they're license plate readers.
Okay. Terrible.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing, I used to have a wonderful ally and say the greater the breakdown, the greater the breakthrough.
Mhm.
And as the control grid comes up and the Trump administration, MAGA has split in two, and I can't tell you how many people have left the MAGA fold.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, so the MAGA coalition and the Maha coalition are, I think the MAGA coalition is fracturing. The Maha coalition is facing the fact that you're not going to be able to really get done what you need to get done in Washington.
Yes.
You're going to have to make this happen virally on a decentralized basis and shift the money and power in the marketplace as well. So I think you can do a lot in the political structure, but I just don't think you're going to get where you need to go because they're committed to control. So what I see the dam cracking all across the place and light coming in. Leonard Cohen has a song where he says there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through. And we're
Mm,
seeing the light popping through. And the reason I'm an optimist is there are so many people who have real experience, real money, real position, and they're suddenly realizing, look, lawlessness won't work.
right.
Right. Lawlessness won't work. And that's why it wouldn't surprise me that this switch from narco terrorism to Vance's presentation, the narco terrorism line isn't playing. They need to
Mm,
talk reality. And that's the world slapping back and
yeah.
saying, you know, we want adult supervision here.
Yeah.
We don't want this kind of I don't know, cheap propaganda that doesn't sell.
Right. Right. Well, in truth, I mean, just truth. It's this idea, and I think they've pivoted from narco terrorism to telling us what's really going on so quickly because there's so much pushback to your point. People just aren't buying it. And as humans, I think we're beginning to understand the algorithms and we're beginning to understand the tricks. We're using pattern recognition and observation and all
Well, but
those things that,
here's the danger,
yeah.
Shannon. There has been tremendous coverage and documentation of narcotics trafficking by the US government and corporations. The
Right.
documentation is overwhelming. And what's going to happen, the same thing was going to happen on Venezuela as happened on Epstein. If you accuse the Venezuelans of narco terrorism, you know, the documentation that can be thrown in your face that
Gonna be
it's
pointing right back to you.
right,
Two
right,
thumbs right back to the US because they're
right.
the chief
Look,
traffickers of
the
drugs into our country through
right, the
intelligence.
Anglo-American Alliance is the leader in the global, read Dope Inc. The Anglo-American Alliance is the global leader in
So
narcotics.
bad.
Right. Not to say that the Chinese haven't taken some away and they have their own long history, but so I think they were in danger of serious pushback uh,
Mm.
on that. And so it doesn't surprise me that they've pivoted.
Before we go to break, Catherine, in your, they paint two scenarios for Americans. Full scale economic collapse, and we're all in poverty. We're a third world country here in the US because we can't go out abroad and seize resources and take over North America and grab Canada and grab Greenland, all those things, right? So we either have to have the economic collapse here and everyone is miserable, or we have to allow these criminals, government organizations and the CIA and the intelligence, organizations in the military go and have their way, around the world, under the guise of protecting our economy. And it seems like a false choice to me. Like in your world, what is the solution? Like, what is a way
So
for us to get out of this?
so 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 that is a false solution.
Yeah,
What we need to do is go from an economy that builds billionaires to an economy that builds wealth.
let's go. Thank
Right.
you.
So I'm holding this up again. So we just published Coming Clean. I first published it in 2004. We redo it again and again. We just redid it again. It's a PDF. It's up on our website. I think your team has the link. Yeah, there it is. And we link to the PDF. And this is a buffet of all the things you can do. I call the system, the system that's destroying productivity, I call it the tapeworm.
Okay.
And so we all know if your body has a tapeworm, what do you need to do? You need to detox the tapeworm.
Right.
Get it out of your mind. You need to get it out of your home. You need to get it out of your income statement. You need to get it out of your balance sheet. And, and so what I tell everybody, get a copy of Coming Clean, skim it and then sit down and look at your life. One of the things I recommend, and I used to have my clients do, is do a time budget for 2026. Find things that are draining your energy. Are you wasting time watching TV programs you don't really enjoy? Are you part of a
Yes.
club that's become unpleasant now or whatever?
Mm.
Find 2 to 4 hours a week that you can use to make changes in your life and then go through Coming Clean. It's a buffet and pick out some things you can do for 2 to 4 hours a week. Like find a great bank instead of banking at the fraudsters who are leading this game. Okay.
Hmm.
And we have a great Solari report on how to find a great local bank. So, and team up with other people. So we try and get people to do Solari, we call them Solari circles. But it's a lot more fun if you're doing it together. If
That's
you're
true.
getting out of the local, getting out of the big box grocery store and finding the local farmers and ranchers. Because I'll tell you something, what's happening in the food system is frightening. And you
Yeah.
need to be healthy, and you're not going to be healthy unless you get good, nutritious food. But figuring out the local sources and establishing those, think of it as like a company that's got to reestablish new supply lines.
Right.
Okay. So pick out the things you can do and start to do it. And as you do it, you increase your power and you decrease the power and energy that's being sucked out of you by the parasite, by the tapeworm. Okay. Now people think, oh, this is too small, this is not big enough, I need to change the president. No, if millions of people pull their money from the banks that are doing all this dirty business and stealing our money, or pulling purchases, or right now 39% of the US stock market is the 7 companies that are building the control grid.
Yep. Absolutely.
Why are you financing them?
Right.
Why are you get your, shift your money into the companies that are doing the things that will make sure you and your kids and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren are free,
Right.
right? So this is a buffet. Everybody's different. Everybody likes doing different things, so so find that 2 to 4 hours and pick up the things you can do and steadily start getting that parasite out of your life, and you're going to be healthier and powerful, and you're going to have improved financial position as a result of doing it.
Catherine, I so appreciate that advice and I co-sign 100% on that. And even, in my own little example, I'm not rich. I'm not, some big financial, mover and shaker. But I started this about 10 years ago. The first step for our family was getting out of virtually all debt, except for the really low
Right,
interest mortgage
right.
debt. So it took us a little while, but we did it. Then after that, about 10 years ago, I started just a little bit of it at a time. Buying silver was my first purchase, just as much as I could afford. It was not very much. And then I added a little bit of gold. And then every time I had a little bit of extra cushion, I would move that into physical silver and gold.
Hmm.
And then I began to look at my investments. And last year, Catherine, and this was a big, heavy lift for our family, but we switched our financial institution from one of the big major banks to a local credit union that I could walk to. So, I mean, it's right in our region, hyper local credit union. And we've been really happy. Then we switched our credit card even to the credit union. And
Right.
devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy loves it because this credit card splits up what I buy and what he buys and gives him an alert every time I buy something, which does not make me happy. I'm like, what the heck is up with that?
But here's
Um,
the thing, you have a relationship,
yeah.
right? And you know the people, you feel good about their
Mm.
handling your money, and
Yes.
you have a relationship. There's some, if they come and I can't wait for you to see, we're going to publish it tonight after we finish. our new featured image for our new Money and Market show. This is the first Money and Market show of the year.
Okay.
And John Titus and I do a roundup every week called Money and Markets. But we have, it looks like that, like a 40th advertising agency in New
Okay.
York. And our theme on Money and Markets was the 1-800 terrorist economy.
Oh,
And that was, if I call you a terrorist, suddenly I can kidnap you and steal your stuff, right?
anything you
And
want.
I don't have to prove it. I just call you a terrorist. It's like abracadabra. It's the magic word,
Yes.
the magic plunder word. So up on the board, there's a map of the world and all these operators taking calls, and the guy running the room has got his finger on a button, and the button says it's a big red button. It says freeze assets.
Right.
You got
No,
to see it because that's what we're doing. It's like that's
yeah.
the magic word. If I call you a terrorist, you know,
Mm,
then I can shoot you on the street in
like Renee
Minnesota,
Good. Yeah.
right? Or I can kidnap you
Yeah.
and make sure I control your oil, right? I
In
mean,
interesting rhetoric that is being used by MAGA and the Trump administration to describe Renee Good, the mom of three, who was gunned down in Minnesota yesterday. Brutal, brutal video to watch. And you're right. I mean, we are now moving into, as more and more Americans begin to wake up, and populations are waking up across the globe, by the way. They're waking
right,
up in the UK, they're waking up in the Netherlands, even in
right.
China and Russia. I think things are happening over there.
Paris is shut down by the farmers right now as we speak, right?
Let's go. And you're
Yeah,
in Netherlands.
exactly.
We love the
Right.
Netherlands farmers. The Dutch farmers are like
The
the
Dutch farm.
OGs.
Can I tell you something? The Dutch farmers are some of the greatest people on the planet. They're amazing.
They're the OGs, the original
Yeah.
gangsters of rolling out and shutting things
Yeah,
down.
and but you know something, they grow about the most delicious food in the
I
country, in the
I
world.
I believe
Yeah,
they do.
yeah.
I believe they do. But yeah, no, everyone can do this. Everyone can begin to emancipate. And I can attest to what Catherine has said. The more independent you get, the closer you get to your community, the more that you pull yourself out of the two-party political paradigm and begin to be able to identify the psyops and those divisive techniques that they use
But push back,
and push
I,
back.
I have to tell you, you can sit here and be afraid, but get off the couch and get off there. And if you
Yeah,
start pushing back, one of the things you discover is you start hanging out with the fabulous people.
the
Because
most fabulous.
yeah, the people are pushing back are fun.
Yes, we are.
So I'm here in the Netherlands and I'm hanging out with Michael Jan and Masako, and it's really fun.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe it. I
Yeah.
believe it. Well, and speaking of that, we're going to go to a quick break. We have one more segment. We are going to talk about what happened in Minnesota. So we'll do a full segment
Okay.
on that with the Catherine Austin Fitz. But speaking of coming together and hanging out, as you know, I also believe physical gatherings are really important. And March 21st, a Saturday, it is another Summit for Truth and Wellness right here in Rochester, New York. I will be hosting. It is on to benefit Americans for Healthcare Alternatives, which is a local organization committed to building a brick and mortar health and wellness building and infrastructure right here in Rochester, New York,
Wonderful.
to help heal people. And this is going to be our fourth summit. We are welcoming Dr. William Mackis, a cancer care physician out of Canada who has been saving thousands and thousands of Americans using combination of ivermectin, fembendazole, menbendazole. He's going to be doing a full cancer care presentation. We have Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, who is going to be here as a distinguished guest, and also Sasha Latapova coming in for some panel discussion. It's going to be super exciting. Tickets go on sale next week. So mark your calendars, March 21st. It is a Saturday. Of course, I know you're in the Netherlands, Catherine, but you're always welcome as well. Anyone
So
and
I
everyone.
do want to mention that I just had one of my favorite subscribers just was cured of cancer by Dr. Mackis.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's,
Absolutely.
I mean, he's amazing, and he's so persecuted. They want to put him in jail in Canada.
One of the most dangerous things you can do, because you have to realize cancer is one of the greatest plunder techniques,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
here's the thing, our body is full of cancer. We all have cancer all the time. The
yeah.
question is, when does it metastasize and get out of control?
Right,
And there are many things you can do, but if you're toxic, the solution is not to give you more toxins.
right.
There are solutions, but piling on the poison is not, you got cancer because you're poisoned one way or
Yeah.
another, right?
Well, and since the rollout of the poison kill shots, devastating cancers, I see it every day. Dr. Makis cured one of my very close friends as well. Just amazing. So this is going to be, it's going to be so amazing. Seating is limited. We have room for 300. I'm doing it in a smaller venue. So but so mark your calendars.
That's a
Tickets are
lot
going
of
to go up.
talent for
Yeah.
300 seats. You're going to
I
need
know.
1,200.
Well, usually we can put, I mean, typically the summits draw between 5 and 800. But it is such a heavy lift. There's so much organization with it, and the venue is so expensive that I pared it down a little bit. But who knows? Maybe we'll pair it up depending on how many people want to show up. But so no, yeah, mark your calendars, and we'll get you all of the information for that coming up. So let's go to a very quick break. When we come back, final segment with Catherine Austin Fitz. Please remember to sign up at Solari to become a member and get, I mean, when I say gold standard, pristine information, the best information, the best, thinkers, actual guides on how to survive and thrive amidst all of the chaos. Things are going to get bumpy, but that doesn't mean that we're afraid. We don't put our heads in the sand. We don't curl up into the fetal position and stop activating, right? We're Americans, damn it. And we fight back and we survive. And this is going to be a really great resource for you guys to get plugged into. So we'll be back in a moment right here on the Shannon Joy Show. At 123.com/joy. Everything that you're going to need for preparation: generators, solar panels, Faraday products. If you want to disappear and protect yourself from the surveillance state, they have an entire line of amazing Faraday products called dark bags. They're always 10% off at the satellite phone store if you go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. The satellite phone store has supported the Shannon Joy Show for many years. They are amazing partners, and let's help the companies that help keep the lights on here at the Shannon Joy Show. So if you are in the market for any of their products or services, make sure you use that promo code JOY and go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Final segment. Catherine Austin Fitz is with us today. She is the editor of Solari. And as promised, we are going to discuss the horrifying incident yesterday in Minnesota, the brutal killing of a mother of three, Renee Good, on the streets of Minnesota. Absolutely horrifying. We have some of the video here. I pulled one of the best videos that I saw, yesterday, Catherine. It didn't take me more than about 5 to 10 minutes to take a look at some of the most relevant video and come to the conclusion, from my perspective, that this was a completely unlawful killing of a U.S. citizen in her car, the shooting of Renee Good. It was clear to me, from a couple viewings, multiple viewings of different angles, that she was not an imminent threat to the ICE officer. And, because of that, I put out a tweet very early in the afternoon yesterday. It's now close to 1 million views, stating that emphatically. But a lot of pushback, an enormous amount of pushback from the likes of JD Vance. He's out tweeting about this and attacking people like myself. Also, Shannon Yoons, who put out a good, opinion on whether or not this was a legal or illegal killing. JD Vance came in and basically, called her absurd and had his own rationale on this. Before we get into some of the videos and the rationales here, what are your thoughts on what we saw?
So I listened to the testimony of one eyewitness, and I watched several videos, including I think the main 4-minute video that everybody's watching.
Yeah.
I would love to hear the deposition of the 3 officers involved. And I would also like to know more evidence about what she was there. There are different stories of why she was there and what she was doing. So I feel like there's more evidence I would love to have. But
Yeah.
just it looks to me, I mean, in the circumstance, given this story, there is no grounds for an officer to use deadly force in that situation.
Hmm.
And so if you were an experienced trained policeman, you would never have used force that I know of in that situation.
Can I
And
back you up here
yeah,
with the code, because this is from the Justice Department, justice.gov, and this just reiterates what you said. It's 116 dot 200, use of deadly force and prohibited restraint techniques. And it says, number one, deadly force may not be used solely to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect. So you can't shoot them in the back, right, if they're running away. It says firearms may not be discharged solely to disable moving vehicles. Specifically, firearms may not be discharged at a moving vehicle unless one, the person in the vehicle is threatening the officer or another person with deadly force by means other than the vehicle, right? So they can't claim that the vehicle is, the 3,000-pound weapon, which I saw a lot of MAGA right people saying that she was wielding a 300,000-pound
from
weapon.
the video, it's clear the officer could have stepped out of the way.
Well, and she turned her wheels.
Right.
You,
She
you,
turned her wheels were turned. She wasn't driving for him. She was turning. And
right.
she had been earlier asked to move. So it's not clear to me, when that instruction came versus when she moved. Now, she may have just panicked because if you are approached by, people who look like that and are dressed like that, when you're a citizen and I still am not clear whether she was there to pick up a child at a school and meet friends, or whether she was. I didn't see any.
Catherine, yeah. Well, initially they were saying that she was an organizer, that she was organizing the event, and that she was from Chicago. She was from another state. That was the initial, and this was all pushed out by the propaganda mill on the right. So these were the cat turds and the Tim Pools and a lot of the people who kind of gather around to protect the president because it's very political. And so now what we're hearing is that she lived in the neighborhood.
Right.
She lived in the neighborhood, and that's been established. And there's also video now showing her not blocking anything, but she was trying to get out and she was waving the ICE vehicle to pass her by.
Right.
Another vehicle passed her by. And so it's very murky. It's very murky at this point, but I wonder if for that reason, it's why, from my perspective, it looked like the talking points went out very, very quickly. And there was a major, major propaganda effort to
So
slam this narrative that it was justifiable killing.
so let me make some guesses, which I really, I'm reticent to do, but it looked to me like you have ICE officers who haven't had proper training and experience.
Yeah.
So you're putting people out on the street who don't have experience and who don't have the proper training. There's no way, because they didn't discharge a firearm to stop the car. They could have shot the tires, right?
Hmm. Oh, absolutely.
She was shot in the head.
Let me show you the
You
video.
you were shot to kill. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
look at the video.
Let me show you the video. Annie, if you can bring up. Now, this was posted. This is probably the best one. I didn't do the 4-minute one, but this is probably the best one which clearly shows the tires are turning away from the officer. The officer jumps back, clearly not injured, right? He was able to step back and get out of, the way of the vehicle. And then it shows him deploying his weapon into the vehicle. Let's take a look at this video and then I'll get your thoughts, Catherine.
I want to show you something. We can go frame by frame on this one. Keep an eye on this guy, the cold-blooded murderer, who's no doubt going to claim that he was afraid that his life was in danger, or whatever. For someone who's going to no doubt claim that, he sure doesn't seem to be in any hurry to move out of the way. See, here you can see that instead of moving out of the way, he actually decides to draw his weapon and actually plant himself more firmly. In fact, he's leaning over the hood of the car right now, on purpose. If you go frame by frame, you can see his feet are actually beside the vehicle at this point. And there is the first time he pulls the trigger, when again, both of his feet show that he has fully cleared the front of that vehicle. And then the next two shots happen here and then here. Both of which, where he's very clearly having to aim through the driver's side window and actually appears to be running after the vehicle to catch up to it. This, by the way, after very clearly signaling to the ICE officers to pass by her on that street, which she was very clearly not blocking nor obstructing, because moments earlier when she first started to pull out, another vehicle started pulling out similarly and crossed in front of her. So she was telling the next one to go on ahead, not posing a threat, not obstructing nor impeding.
I would be careful because that one looks different than the one I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And you run the danger that AI can, redo these videos in many different ways. So
Yeah.
I would be careful. But um, I mean that video makes it look much worse than the one I saw. But either way, the one I saw was, clearly the officer was using I mean, the officer was shooting to kill when he was not in danger. He was easily could have stepped out of the way. And under the circumstances, he's not authorized to discharge his firearm, let alone shoot to kill.
Right.
Now,
The second and the third shot, I heard from there was analysis from defense attorneys who represent police officers and law enforcement in these type of situations. And they said maybe shot number one, maybe we could try to defend, but shot number two and shot number three, indefensible, completely
right,
indefensible. He had cleared the vehicle. Yeah.
so let me step back and talk about what this looks like from somebody who used to run a government agency.
Mhm.
We have watched Kristi Noem put in her budget to get 2 private jets so she and the executive leadership can fly around in luxury. Okay.
Yeah.
She, I know of one situation here in Europe where she and one of her aides were invited to come speak. They came and spoke. They spent most of the time doing whatever in a hotel room and then left without saying goodbye. And the whole group was shocked.
Yeah.
And Chrissy Nome, and I don't mean to be sexist, but looks like she spends a lot more time worrying about her makeup than she worries about, the training of her officers on the ground.
I
Okay.
call her Homeland Security Barbie
Right.
because
I just think it is a media focused operation. They are
yeah.
trying to get headlines. I don't know if you saw the story when she went down to El Salvador,
Mm,
and the people they put in the prisons for the shots behind her were not people who'd been deported. They were prisoners from El Salvador. I mean, the whole thing,
psyop.
everything, it's a psyop and it's a theater. And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and if you look at the ICE officers and how, they were described as being unprepared, not sure how to handle it, not well managed, and then this happens. That's what happens when you have a group of people who are being organized and run to build theaters and headlines and not focused on hard training and hard performance in the field in the real world.
Right.
And
Well,
and
yeah, and I want to let you go because I know you have a hard out at 1:30. We will stick around for a little bit, guys. I want to get some of your comments on this. Um, it just, I mean, they're not even, and you have identified this. They're not even deporting illegal criminal aliens, right? It's like a very, very meager operation. It's a lot more show than it is go in terms of these ISIS operations. But they are, I mean, this psyop is establishing and normalizing troops in the street, tanks in the street,
well, they're trying
illegal
to.
search and seizure.
It's not working. The
Yeah.
Supreme Court. We can take the time. The Supreme Court just handed the Trump administration head to them right before Christmas, six to
Wow.
three. They said you cannot send in the National Guard. It's not constitutional if the governors say no.
Wow.
Now, let's talk about the law. Under the law, as a president, I can send in the National Guard if federal officers are being threatened, okay?
Mhm.
Legitimately. I can't send in the National Guard to stop crime. And P.S., let me tell you something. If the federal government can stop crime in neighborhoods 1,000 different ways, and they're not doing any of those things, like
That's right.
stopping bringing narcotics across the border and stopping the fentanyl, and they're not doing that, right?
Hmm.
So the federal government has 1,000 ways to stop crime. They're not doing it, but they're dropping in the National Guard. So it's not to stop crime. We know it's political, and we know it's something else. And so the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. Illinois won the case right before Christmas. Big, big Christmas present. So what is happening is these games to inflict serious control centrally are getting a tremendous amount of pushback.
Good.
The place we have to push back is on programmable money. Now,
Hmm.
let me just say one thing about the ICE agents. Those ICE agents, my guess is they have not had proper training.
Right.
They have not had the training that they should have before you put these kind of agents out on the street. And they have been injected with so much um, media propaganda. It wouldn't surprise me if the woman who was shot was scared to death because of the media propaganda. And the ICE officers were all jacked up because of media propaganda that comes with neuro warfare. Okay.
Right.
So I think all the people in that situation, have been fed so and ingested so many lies that could have caused them to behave, it could have caused the woman to just get scared and run off and to get the
Right.
others to, everybody's running these movies in their heads, and we got to turn off the TV, stop ingesting the neural warfare and start talking to each other.
Mm.
Right.
No, I agree. I'm praying that the response from the citizens in Minnesota and in that neighborhood will be peaceful. I know that the control agents, they would love to see a civil war in the United States of America, and they would love to see Trump go in and arrest the governor of Minnesota and deploy the National Guard into, we've got to
So
resist that.
we need to pray for everybody involved. We
Yeah,
need to
we
pray
do.
for the ICE officers. We need to
Yeah.
pray for the family. We need to pray for everybody involved. I'll tell you what else we need to do. So there have been terrible frauds in all the federal accounts. Nobody's talked about the frauds more than me. The administration has just canceled enormous amounts of social safety net money into the five of the big Democratic states because of, as a response to the Somalia headline. So what we're doing in response to the people who did the fraud, we are cutting off desperately needed money to poor people in
Mm,
the middle of winter, including millions of people who didn't engage in any fraud.
right. It's a
Right.
tinderbox. Yeah.
So what we're doing is, a fraud that was encouraged and allowed to happen thanks to the federal government. The solution is now to punish tons of poor people who were not involved.
Wow. Yeah, it's awful.
Right.
It's
And that's
awful.
coming into the election, and it's dirty politics.
Yeah, it is. I agree with you, Catherine. Prayers all around
Right.
for everyone involved. And there's a lot of information still coming in. Uh, you know, and we're gonna keep an eye on all of that. But at the end of the day, I agree. We need to take the narratives that we have in our minds about the other side or other people. We just have to shed that and look at these situations for what they are, and not from a political lens, but for what actually happened.
Right. But there's something else we need to do. The time has come in every aspect of our life to support leaderships who live in the real world and are effective in the real world so the bridges don't fall down and the
Right.
Chinese don't whoop our butt.
That's true.
I'm sick of leadership that is running a media campaign, and I'm sick of leadership that is wasting federal money on you name the fraud. And
Yeah.
I'm sick of leadership that is spinning lies. You know, I'm sick of hearing it's narco terrorists.
Mm,
It's 2026. We need to get back into the real world because if we don't, we're going to get our butts whooped by
yeah.
the nature of physics, the economy, and what the BRIC nations are up to.
That's
They
right.
they are doing an excellent job in the real world. We need
Yes,
to
they
do
are.
right.
The Catherine Austin Fitz. I am so sorry I kept you longer. Go to dinner, lady. I so appreciate you. Please say hi to Michael Yan and Musako and have a lovely dinner. And
Thank
we
you,
will have,
Shannon.
yes, we'll have you on
Thank
again soon.
thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for doing that event in March. That sounds terrific.
It is. And we'll send out invitations to everyone because we want as many people as we can have there. But no, we just got to keep on keeping on, lady. And you're at the tip of the spear of that. So thank you for everything that you're doing as well. God bless.
Bye.
All right. All right, everyone. That was the Catherine Austin Fitz all the way live from the Netherlands. You guys are going to want to make sure that you check out Solari. Again, I'm not sugarcoating it when I tell you this is an absolutely amazing resource. Amazing resource. I depend on Solari in so many ways. And I see you guys on the live chat. Really great interview with Catherine. Roar Media, great to see you. Let's double our pesticide intake. I'm sure it'll help our economy, health, and cognition. Well, yeah, poison is a really great business racket, right? Because then you poison the person, make them sick, and then you can sell them the antidote. And it's a horrifying but highly lucrative business model. And unfortunately, the people who run things seem to have cornered the market on that. CJP Rumble, Buskman, great to see you. So many new commenters on the live chat. I see you, Mark the Regan. Strident conservative. Yeah, I see your comment. Do you guys remember when SJ interviewed Sheriff Mack and he said he was wrong about Trump building a de facto Gestapo? Yeah, what we're seeing in Minnesota is pretty concerning. Pretty concerning. Yeah, I see you, Buskman. LT Oracle, Truth, great to see you as well. Hey, do you guys want to meet up tomorrow for an SJ midday matinee? So as you guys know, we put up, sometimes we have the SJ live chats behind the Rumble premium paywall. So we're going to do that tomorrow. And this is where we come together. You guys can ask me any questions. We can discuss what happened in Minnesota and all of the information that I have here on that. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. It's your opportunity to ask me questions and for us to have some discourse. We're able to bring people in so that they can speak. So there is an option to Zoom in or call in and we can have a chat. We're going to do that tomorrow. Or we might do a movie showing on that Rumble Premium broadcast as well. So let's meet tomorrow in the SJ studio. I think we'll start around 11 o'clock. And Julia November, great to see you. My first Shannon Live, refreshing and interesting. Thank you so much, Julia. Appreciate you. And that's a really nice comment. Zen Woman, tell me about March. I may be able to make it. Buskman wants V for Vendetta. The thing about V for Vendetta is there is such a graphic sexual assault scene that I don't even like to watch it myself in that movie. And so I don't know how, I just don't know if I'd want to, maybe, I mean, I'm not a prude, but I'm not sure. So we'll pick out a movie for tomorrow. There's one that I wanted to do, which I'm going to try to get the rights to do it. I'm going to get in contact with the movie maker. Solari has, and this is Catherine Austin Fitz's organization, has a report called Political Control and Pedophilia, and it's a 2025 update. And in that, she recommends a movie that was produced by Luca Films, and Tracy Luca is the director, and it was a powerful 2016 movie, which is based on the true story of the U.S. child trafficking network called The Finders. And this is a description from Luca Films on that. This is what I'd like to do tomorrow behind the Rumble Premium paywall in the SJ Midday Matinee. So we'll chat for a little bit. You guys can ask me questions. We'll have some commentary, and then we'll get into the showing. But this was a description. Monica, a small town mayor, risks everything if she exposes a powerful child trafficking and blackmailing organization, the Finders, this is a true story, who mistakenly tried to steal her son during a kidnapping assignment. The Finders create control files on politicians and people in high places using children. Monica tries to expose the evil, but when the events turn violent, she contemplates selling her soul to the devil. And this is based on a true story. And it's the first movie that the Solari report used as a critical element in the storyline. And Yeah, they also have an interview from Nick Bryant, who has been on the SJ show multiple times on his investigation of the Franklin scandal and cover up. So I think I might want to do that tomorrow because, as you know, Tom Massey has been out really hammering the Trump administration. They have missed critical deadline for the release of the Epstein files. And as you know from this interview with Catherine Austin Fitts, child sex trafficking and pedophilia and these pedophilia rings go hand in hand with the corruption, the financial corruption, the weapons trafficking, arms trafficking, drug trafficking, and human trafficking, which also includes the trafficking of children. And so the blackmail operation, the coercion operations, all of these work together to create the criminal cartel that is running things in the United States of America today. And it's both on the left and on the right. So Republican and Democrat alike, especially at the highest levels in the federal government. But here we know that this happens. There are rings all around the country, and they are in small town villages. And so this is something that I think people do need to understand. And the thing I love about Catherine Austin Fitts is that they take an issue like pedophilia and organized ubiquitous pedophilia that is practiced by leaders in the highest positions of power. So these type of stories at Solari, they tell them and they explain them in the most intelligent and rational, non-hyperbolic way. They use firsthand documentation, some of the best researchers out there. And so it's not this kind of shady in the back room on Reddit channels or QAnon, like talking about Pizzagate, whether or not you believe in what happened with that story. But they tell these stories in a very factual and informational way with the best resources, the links, hyperlinks, documentation, government documentation, court documents, you name it, they have it all there. And so this stuff is important to know, and they do a really great job with that. So that is something that I want to do tomorrow with all of you. So let's agree to meet back here. Why don't we keep it at the same time? Why don't we do a noon start? I will be self-producing. We love Annie, but we give her the Fridays off. So I'll be self-producing tomorrow. We'll come into the Joy Virtual Studio, chat for a little while, and we will watch this very important movie / representation of a real story here in the SJ studio. It is The Finders. So that's what we're going to do. All right, guys. So have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Or afternoon. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us here today on the SJ Show. Please remember our sponsors. If you need anything in terms of preparation, go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. Make sure you use that joy promo code to check out. You'll get an extra 10% off of everything. And then, of course, a huge thank you to our friends over at Shift Gold. Physical gold and silver, guys, it is still super affordable when you consider where it is going. And you can learn all about physical gold and silver in your IRA with Peter Schiff and the team over at shiftgold.com/joy. That is shiftgold.com/joy. Thank you all for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.